People is one of the most important concepts in society. For over 2000 years, the concept of people has played a fundamental role in understanding human interactions at social, political, and economic levels. And this is due to the Athenian democracy, which, although it was not the first, was the most influential democratic paradigm. From those times to today, many countries have assumed democracy as a form of government. Many of these countries are proud of their democratic system because the people is the source of sovereignty. Those who live in democratic societies or aspire to live in these types of societies may have heard the phrase that says government of the people, by the people, for the people. Indeed, it is a famous quote from the Gettysburg Address delivered by Abraham Lincoln in 1863. Here, Lincoln pointed out a democratic ideal and let us know how essential the concept of people is in this form of government. Clearly, all democratic theory is based on the people. However, people is a term that we can evoke without really understand it. We say the government of the people, but what is the so-called people? Furthermore, there could be situations in which some individuals may evoke it as a mere demagoguery, and when this occurs, they unconsciously admit that the people can be flattered as kings or emperors. But we also discover that the people may be absent from democracy, even though it is evoked. In any case, it is critical to know what the people is. If we do not know what the people is, we cannot understand the essence of democracy. As Giovanni Sartori indicates in his political studies, the concept of people is the core bone of democracy, and it is often associated with the theory of state. Thus, it is possible to refer to at least 6 general interpretations of what the people is. These are: that the people is everybody, that the people refers to a large number of individuals, that the people is the lower class. Those who are not from the lower class are not considered to be people, and this could indicate some type of exclusion. That the people is a unified entity as a type of organic totality of individuals. That the people is an absolute majority. In other words, the majority, being the people, represents the interest of everybody. Therefore, it has an unlimited right to decide for all. Or that the people is a limited majority. In this case, although the people is the majority population, it does not have unlimited rights, so the rights and opinions of minorities must be respected. By combining these assertions, we can see people as a population or group of individuals united by ties of citizenship in a state. Now, when we analyze the people from the perspectives of nations and states, we will see it that is accompanied by other psychological, sociological, and anthropological constructs, such as national conscience and cultural community. For this reason, we can also approach the people from ethnography and sociology. From ethnography, we can see the people in terms of a set of individuals and families that are characterized by a synchrony of physical features and cultural expressions. It is a collective body that creates social institutions, and all this makes the people relate to the concept of ethnic group. At the same time, from a modern and postmodern perspective, sociology could see the people as the sector of the population made up of the unprivileged social classes that aspire to extend their rights within the limits of the state. This supposes the existence of social classes and antagonism between them. It is an intellectual disposition that sees the conflict between the people demanding human and civil rights and the privileged class that manages the state. From these sociological considerations, we see, for example, the social conflicts that existed in the Roman Empire between patricians and the plebeians, as well as what Karl Marx would later explain as the conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat or working people in the modern European societies. However, we should consider that the concept of people has not always been associated with the lower classes, the excluded, or the majority. Precisely, in the very democracy of classical Athens, the people was instead a privileged sector of society because it was the one with political rights and access to occupy public offices. Although women, slaves, foreigners, and a large part of the youth were the majority, these were not citizens and therefore were not part of the people who exercised democracy. With all this said, we can agree with Antonio Pereira on understanding the people as the basis for the foundation of a nation, which is a sociological cultural entity that aspires to enjoy an independent and sovereign legal and political organization, in other words, the state. At this point, it is convenient to make explicit a common feature between all these conceptualizations, which refers to considering the people from a quantitative perspective: number of citizens, population or members of a population, majority or minority. This is very logical if we understand that contemporary political science has developed more in its quantitative thinking than in its qualitative reasoning. Alfonso Barreto demonstrates these statements and understands that the people is a political concept that may not be entirely quantitative, and, in fact, José Ingenieros indicates in his book The Mediocre Man, people is a qualitative rather than a quantitative matter. Ingenieros points out that the people is the depositary of the nation's soul. It is a spiritual entity. The people embodies the destiny consciousness of a nation or a race. Individuals do not become a people because they share distinguishable physical or cultural features, or because they belong to a particular social class, but because the patriotic spirit has settled in the conscience of individuals as political subjects who aspire to glory and common dignity. The fatherland is a synchronism of spirits and hearts, uniform temperament for effort and homogeneous disposition for sacrifice, simultaneity in the aspiration of greatness, in the modesty of humiliation, and the desire for glory. Therefore, people can be both an individual or a community of individuals as long as they embrace the fatherland ideal. While population is a quantitative demographic concept and citizenship is a legal category that determines access to certain rights within the state and the system of states, people can instead be a qualitative socioanthropological concept with profound political implications. In this regard, when speaking about the people, two parallel and sometimes interconnected notions can be assumed. On the one hand, there is a widely used quantitative notion, which is the most pragmatic and useful conception in structuring society and achieving certain common objectives. Thus, certain democratic models can be understood from an elitist perspective if we have a vision that a people, that is, population, is a mass of individuals that must be led by a social sector capable of governing the society efficiently. But we also see how other democratic models aspire to a more participatory and less elitist political exercise because the people, as population, is seen to be capable of making its own decisions and exercising its rights and being aware of its duties. If some democracies try to channel the people through complex institutional frameworks and political parties in order to efficiently lead it to its own well-being, other democracies are more direct and prefer to have the people as the protagonist of its historical construction. On the other hand, the more qualitative notion discovers the transcendental implications of the people as the body that carries the patriot sentiment. From qualitative perspectives, we can understand what we may call the democrat geist or democratic spirit that must guide the government of the people, by the people, for the people, and from the people as a transcendental patriotic body. Accordingly, if we follow Giovanni Sartori in understanding elections as the mechanical lever of democracy, we are no longer speaking about the number of elections or the configuration of sophisticated electoral institutions, but rather the patriot quality of electors with high political consciousness. Be it an individual or a community of individuals, the people is the guardian of the fatherland, which is defended through democracy. Depending on how the people considers itself, we will have better or worse democratic systems, a better or worse country, a greater or lesser sentimental affiliation between beings from the same society, as well as more or fewer opportunities to achieve political stability and social happiness. Plato, one of the most relevant philosophers on political and ethical issues, suggested democracy was the worst among the good form of governments and the best among the bad ones. With this, we conclude that the people is responsible for putting democracy on the side of bad governments or the side of good governments, and it is the people itself who says whether its democracy is mediocre or creates independent and sovereign human beings. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content.